Hey guys, this is Nick with PhoneArena and you're watching our in-depth video review of the Acer Liquit Z2. As you can probably tell, it's a low-end Android smartphone. It doesn't offer any fancy features and it has pretty weak hardware specs, but it makes up for that with being extremely affordable. In fact, in the markets where it's currently on sale, it can be bought for about $130 to $150. Overall, it's a decent pick. It's not perfect, but it's okay considering its price. Join us as we walk you through all you need to know about it. The body of the Acer Liquit Z2 is made of soft touch plastic. It may not look pretty, but it's definitely sturdy. And besides, the matte finish provides plenty of grip and it's very resistant to fingerprints. Thanks to its shape and size, the smartphone is very easy to handle and operate with a single hand. The physical buttons on the side of the smartphone are easy to reach, although we wish that the power key on top was a bit more pronounced. There are 3 capacitive buttons underneath the display, which are very responsive and easy to reach. The Acer Liquit Z2 comes with a 3.5-inch display of mediocre quality. It has a resolution of 320 by 480 pixels, which makes reading small text rather challenging due to the low pixel density, so be ready to zoom in on web pages quite often. At least we can say that the screen's color representation is okay and it can be used on a sunny day as long as the sun is not shining straight at it. We have Android 4.1.1 running on the Acer Liquit Z2 with user interface that has retained its stock form for the most part, which is actually good news. A phone so weak in terms of processing power doesn't really need any additional visual tweaks. Of course, there are some modifications that we have to mention. For example, the lock screen can host 4 shortcuts to frequently used applications, while in the notification bar there's a dozen of toggle switches. In addition to that, Acer has thrown in the so-called Quick Mode, which is basically like a simplified alternative to the interface, providing quick access to the phone's primary features. However, we can't imagine this being useful to anyone who has a basic understanding as to how things are organized throughout the Android interface. In addition to all the stock widgets that come with Android 4.1.1, Acer has added a very handy counter for your data usage and a custom weather and clock widget. There is a dual SIM version of the Acer Liquit Z2. On that model, you can set one of the SIM cards to handle voice calls and text messages, for example, while you can make the other responsible for data connectivity. We must note that while both SIM cards can be on standby at the same time, only one of them can be active, meaning that if one of them is used for a phone call, for example, the other one won't be receiving any incoming calls or text messages. Here we have the on-screen virtual keyboard on the Acer Liquit Z2. Unfortunately, it's a bit tiny at first, so it does take some getting used to. There is swipe support for those of you who are fans of that alternative input method. We have a 1 GHz single-core processor running inside the Acer Liquit Z2, and it's paired with 512 MB of RAM. Overall, that's a pretty weak hardware combination, but nevertheless, the smartphone's user interface is smooth enough to not be classified as frustrating to use. In fact, the smartphone is capable of running casual video games at very good frame rates. Since it comes with a small, low-resolution display, the Acer Liquit Z2 is not ideal for heavy web browsing, but it's good enough for looking up stuff on the fly. The performance of the web browser is okay. Heavy web pages take a while to load, but lighter ones are rendered quickly with acceptable loading times. There is a very basic 5-megapixel camera on the Acer Liquit Z2 with fixed focus and no LED flash. But given enough light, the camera can take okay photos that look acceptable as long as you do not zoom in. Low-light photos and videos, however, look very bad, as if they have been taken with a webcam. Videos can be captured at a maximum resolution of 640 by 480 pixels, which is low but still acceptable for the price range of this phone. The Acer Liquit Z2 can definitely serve as a substitute for a dedicated MP3 player. Just pop in a microSD card in it and you're good to go. You get Google Play Music as the default music player on the device, which is a good enough music player. In addition to the traditional equalizer, Acer has added the so-called SRS sound feature, which adds further control over the bass and the treble in the music that is playing and in the videos that are running. Speaking of videos, the stock video player app is very basic in terms of features, and even though it supports many different file formats, it's unable to play them back at a resolution higher than 800 by 480 pixels. Of course, that's not too big of a drawback, since the screen's resolution is low anyway. There's a single loudspeaker on the back of the smartphone, which is decent in terms of loudness, but it tends to crackle when it's set at the maximum volume level. The quality of phone calls made with the Acer Liquit Z2 is disappointing. The earpiece is the worst bit because it sounds weak even at the loudest volume setting. The microphone does a bit better job because although it's muffled on the other side of the line, our voice is still loud enough to be understood. There is a removable 1300 mAh battery inside the Acer Liquit Z2. It's rated for 6 hours of continuous talk time, which is an average figure. Chances are that you will be able to get about a day of moderate usage because the hardware of the phone is not really that power hungry, but getting a second day would be really hard. You might be able to squeeze a bit more battery life out of it by using the scheduled on and off feature, which pretty much does what the name implies. It turns off the phone at a predefined time and then turns it back on whenever you want. To wrap things up, we think it's pretty clear that the Acer Liquit Z2 is far from perfect, but considering what it costs, we think it's very suitable for buyers on a very tight budget or for parents who need a cheap smartphone for their teenage kid. That's because, despite the weak hardware, it is still a full-fledged Android smartphone with access to tons of applications from the Google library. Sadly, the mediocre call quality of the Acer Liquit Z2 is a flaw that we must highlight. Buyers who demand having a dual SIM phone that sounds great during calls should try getting the Samsung Galaxy Young Duos or the Sony Xperia E Dual, both of which have great call quality and offer an identical set of features without costing much more. For a little extra cash, one might also consider getting the Samsung Galaxy Young Duos or the Sony Xperia Miro, which may be low-end smartphones as well, but come with good cameras for their class. Thank you for watching our video review of the Acer Liquit Z2. This is Nick, and if you'd like to learn more about this smartphone and all the latest smartphones out there, just visit our website phonearena.com.